pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Wakefield. Here. Knutson. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Ruck. Here. Hall.
Here.
All right. Comments from citizens present. This is your opportunity to say or talk about, comment on any subject that is not on the agenda. So if you do have something to say, Chief, just come on up and identify yourself, where you live. Keep your keep your comments brief. Well, and try not to repeat other people's comments. All right, any comments? Any comments? Any comments? Close that portion of the agenda. Initial resolution number 5-24 of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $5,115,000 for the construction of and improvements to a building located at 1201 Hanley Road to be used for police facilities.
So these next four items are in the same vein. We do have Sean Lansworth Ellers here to give a presentation kind of the mechanics of all of this. It is to talk about bonding and taking out promissory notes for a new police station, existing facility, as well as a new public works facility. So Sean, if you would kind of walk us through kind of what we're going through here. I know there's gonna be a lot of questions, or I'm sure there will be, but yeah, if you give that overview, kind of what we're looking at or considering, I think it'd be helpful. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Some of the material will be information that you've seen before, and some of it will be new with a little bit more detail on our discussion earlier in the week. So the first slide on page 2 is the listing of the projects that the mayor and Mike just alluded to, which involve really two steps: initial acquisition of 2 buildings, and then step 2 would be the remodeling necessary to transition them from their existing purpose to being used as buildings for public works and buildings for police station. As we talked about the other day, it's going to involve 3 different financings. 2 of them can be like our normal governmental purpose tax exempt debt issues. One is going to be a 10-year note, and that's going to be related to the acquisition of the buildings for police and public works. And then the tax exempt bonds will be for the purposes of remodeling the 2 buildings to put them into the purpose that we want to see. And then the third financing is a little bit of the quirky one. As I think the council's aware, the public works building, 55% of it approximately is leased to a private business, and that relationship will continue even after you own it. So per the tax laws for financing projects, we're not able to use tax exempt borrowing for that, and that's where we're going to issue what's called a taxable note anticipation note. And that debt will be outstanding over the same period that the lease is. And then if the lease doesn't get extended, then we'll be able to do whatever the city wants to do with the building after that point, and we can adjust the financing at that time. Second slide, that we looked at this before too, just to give you a sense of the interest rates for a governmental type bond that we're going to be using here. As I'd mentioned the other day, interest rates certainly came up from their all-time lows a couple years ago, the period kind of in and coming out of COVID. But historically speaking, we're still at a very low interest rate environment when you look at over the back, as this chart does, over the last 30 years. Now, these next 3 slides are, we did not have in the presentation the other day. And what I wanted to share with the council is a little more detail as to what the repayment schedules for the 3 debt issues that I just alluded to will look like. The first Series A promissory note issue, what you see on the screen right now is the proposed repayment schedule for this note issue over the next 10 years. We've got interest rates projected about 0.5% above current market conditions. And you'll see the total payments of principal and interest each year. And then we've divided it out into what portion of that is going to be paying for that Public Works building, the 45% that we're going to use immediately for governmental purpose activities, the acquisition costs, and then the police building and the acquisition costs there. The note would be for, as I mentioned, a 10-year term. The first 6 years, there would not be the ability to prepay, but starting in the 6th year through the 10th year, if interest rates were lower, the city could refinance if you wanted to, or if you had an accumulation of funds and you wanted to make a prepayment in whole or in part, that would be available to the city at that time.
And that's the same with refinance, so you can't refinance prior to 6 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, there wouldn't be the available, not using tax exempt debt. I mean, if taxable debt was available at a real low interest rate, and you could do that, but using tax exempt debt, no.
Okay.
Now, the second issue is the bond issue. And this is going to look a little unusual to you because for the first period from 2025 to 2033, we're not making any principal payments on this, but we will make principal payments from 2034 to 44 such that the whole issue would be repaid at that point. And you may say, well, what's the thought here? The thought is that the 10-year promissory notes, there are certain projects in that debt issue that we can't put into the bond issue because it's not in our statutory authorization. And that was that discussion about construction of a police facilities versus acquiring a police facility and not having that in the statute. But by setting the issue up this way with no principal payments in the first 10 years and then all the payments in the last 10, if we blend together the note issue and the bonds together, you're left with a $1,090,000 payment, principal and interest, each year for 10 years. So that's the strategy behind what we're doing here with putting the two issues together and why the repayment schedules are set up as such. The notes, we have to pay that in 10 years or less per statutes. The bonds, we can go out to 20. And so that's how we put them together to have that level payment overall. Okay. And finally, the Series C issue, which is to finance 55% of the acquisition costs of the Public Works building. There won't be any remodeling to this portion done immediately. This issue, the finance plan is to borrow to have the proceeds to make the acquisition. We will have interest payments on this debt for the next 5 years. Those interest payments, I believe, based on where the lease payments that the business will now be paying to the city rather than the current owner of the building, those payments will be directed to make the interest payment each year. And then when we get to that 5th year, which is that inflection point where you'll get a decision from the business as to whether they're going to continue. I think they could do a 5-year extension, as I understand
Correct.
it, or whether they decide that, nope, we're done, we're going to move out. This will allow the city then to transition the debt, if they were to move out, to a tax exempt, and then begin to fully amortize that debt and pay it back. This one would have, the first couple years, we would not be able to prepay, but starting in the 3rd year through the 5th year, if by some chance they were to say we want to move out early or we wanted to negotiate, the debt would be able to be prepaid early should the city want to do that. If not, we'd have to do something with that balloon payment by that 5th year in 2029. Okay. All right. The last couple slides are similar to what we talked about in layering this proposed financing, these 3 issues, with the city's existing debt and what your capital improvement plan is forecasting for ongoing street and equipment, upgrades to facilities, anything else that's in your capital improvement plan. Between now and 2027, we've got our plan. The green and the blue, the green at the bottom of the chart, that's the existing debt. Kind of the aqua blue are the projects. We're talking about financing to acquire and remodel the two buildings. The orange and the little bit darker green, that's capital improvement debt in 25 and 27. And then the red, pinkish red at the top, that's when we would extend that balloon payment under the assumption that we would begin to fully use that building for public purposes, that extra 55% at that time. So this is very consistent with what we had talked about the other day. And then this chart also was the one we discussed where we looked at the impact of the ongoing capital improvement plan and the facility financings for the Public Works Building and the police, with the targeted analysis of looking at about a $400,000 valued property in the city and what the tax impact would be. Now, again, this is with all other expenses of the city not in this chart. This is just looking at debt only. And it's also got that assumption that over the next couple of years, next 3 years, the city grows at about 5%, and then it goes 1% in growth thereafter. You know, if we look back at the last 5 years, that's very conservative, but you never know what the growth is going to be exactly like in the coming years. This gives you that sense of, for this year, 2024, on a $400,000 equalized value property in Hudson, the tax payment for debt was about $363. With the projects hitting in for the facilities and debt service in 2025, we are projecting that to go to about $484 at that point. And then the orange and the green thereafter, that impact again is, that's not the facilities, that's the impact of ongoing capital improvement needs, which, as the council discussed the other day, they're in the plan, but you still will go through the process of deciding the projects, and are they moving forward, or before they actually will have debt issued for them. You've not approved these projects, you've not bid these out to this point.
And we do that every 2 years, for the council, update our capital improvement plan. Both of these projects were in that plan. It just kind of happened that these opportunities became available to us at one time, which makes it a little bit more challenging. So the previous chart that Sean showed, that kind of showed the stacking and the debts and, the things that we would be repaying, they were included in the future at actually a much higher cost. What we had, if we had to build a brand new police station or a brand new fire station, those costs were going to be a lot higher than what we hopefully will realize as part of this process. But again, we're, going through our due diligence, kind of putting this together. Action tonight does not commit us to actually selling the bonds. We could get to a point where there's a red flag in one of these facilities, something doesn't work, there's a structural or, whatever the issue might be, we can then go back and talk about, assess, figuring out if we need to, change what we're looking at for bonding and stretch it out a little bit differently or walk away from a deal. So, I think this is some important context to share as we finish up with Sean's presentation. Yep.
Yeah, it's a good segue, I think, to the last slide that I've got, and certainly we can answer more questions, but we initially discussed this earlier in the week. Today, as Mike talked about, in order to move forward with the bonding and have the ability to get the debt issuances in place commensurate with your ongoing negotiations to secure the property and buy the property, we would need to approve the initial resolutions this evening. That's part of the statutory authority to issue the debt. We've targeted, again, with keeping in mind the negotiations and closing obligations you may have should all the due diligence go well, that you could be in a position to sell all three issues in February. I've put the 20th. Now, you guys normally meet on Mondays, but the market isn't open on the 19th because it's Martin Luther King, no, that's
President's Day.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Martin Luther King is Monday coming up. That's President's Day. So tentatively, we've moved it to the 20th, but we can, depending on how the ongoing negotiation, the due diligence, we could sell all three issues at the same time. We could split them up if, time-wise, it makes more sense to just do the acquisition right away, some of the other stuff later. These are options. We're trying to build in the flexibility pending how the due diligence discussions go. And I think that should be coming up in the next few weeks, right? That's going to be ongoing. Yeah. But this will put us in the position with tonight's activity to meet that that hurdle of authorization of the debt. And then it's just being ready to move should everything else come together on the acquisition of the properties.
So should things come together, you have on your fourth bullet point, March, acquisition costs and remodeling. I know we had some discussions on Monday about whether or not we hold off on the construction. I'm not in favor of that. If we're going to do this, I want to do it and fund the construction as well, so it gets done in a timely, faster manner.
And that, this will get us there if that's
Okay.
the approach council wants to take, absolutely. Yep.
That it, Sean?
It is, yes, Mayor.
Okay. Questions? Anybody? Do we have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution 7-1.
Oh,
It's
5-24.
5-24.
I'll second that.
Wow.
7,
I got
Amend your
glasses
motion?
on.
5
You amend your motion?
5-24.
Amended to 5-24.
I will second the amended motion.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion?
Well, just to clarify for the public, this is a general obligation bond for $5,115,000, and this is for the acquisition of the police, the building that would become the police station. Is that correct?
This is
So
for
we
the,
would vote for each of these individually?
Individually,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, for it's the construction and improvement. Thank you.
Improvements.
Correction. It's a little complicated.
it is.
Yeah.
Sean, can you talk a little bit about kind of the difference between how you can finance for public works versus police?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this slide. So we talked with your bond counsel, Freiberger, Buchanan, Bob Tofty, looking at the different types of projects and then looking at the state statutes which describe what financing tools you're able to use. The big one that was, the two things that were a challenge, a little more unique, were the acquisition for the police facility. We originally thought, well, maybe we can just use bonds for everything and put it together. But the acquisition for the police facility is not one of the listed projects under which you can issue 20-year bonds. You can do it with general obligation promissory notes. They can almost finance any type of project that you can dream up that you would have to do. So what in terms of putting together the projects, we put that project, the acquisition of the police facility, and the acquisition of 45% of the public works building into the note issue. The bonds, they allow for construction of a police facility. So we've put the financing for the construction of the police facility and for the remodeling or remodeling of the police facility, remodeling of the public works building. Those clearly can be done with bonds. We put those into the bond category. Where that leaves the council is you need to approve 4 different initial resolutions that you have on the agenda. The promissory notes are for the acquisition of the police facility and the acquisition of 45% of the public works facility. The bonds require 2 initial resolution, one for what is deemed to be the construction of a police facility, and then the public works is the remodeling of a building that's going to be used for housing of machinery and equipment. So that's the 2 resolutions that you have to do for the bonding, the 20-year bonding. And then finally, that 55% of the public works building that's going to remain under the lease, That's an initial resolution for the third type of financing, which is that taxable note anticipation note. So that's the reason for these four different initial resolutions. In an ideal world, we could just do it all as one, but the statutes don't make it quite that easy.
And thanks for running through that again. I think part of what I'd like to see tonight is we just talk about it a little bit, since we have had a number of meetings in closed session, which we are obliged to do so when we're negotiating. So, and I just think for the public's knowledge of that we're doing our due diligence and great counsel from you on how to put it together in the best possible package. So at any rate, I just would like to make a comment about, I think, the importance of the police facility, that the environment that they're in right now, the facility isn't big enough for our force. Previous councils have chosen to increase our police force because of, public safety is one of our number one responsibilities. And so over the last few years, more officers have been hired, and I have a great deal of confidence. We have an excellent police department, well-trained force, excellent police chief, but they need elbow room. I'm sure you've all been through the facility. People are sharing cubicles. Okay, it's my shift. Sort of classic, who moved my cheese? You left your stuff here. You were on the prior shift. I mean, they're that crowded. They don't have their own working space for the average patrol officer. And then for training and advanced things that they want to do within the department, and also educating the public to have a better facility. So I do think also it's interesting to see, appreciated receiving the needs analysis done, where the outside consultant firm surveyed our officers to find out, what did they feel about their work environment, what did they seek or felt better about, what would they like to have. And I do think, obviously, they show up to do a job. A lot of their work is outside of the building. They're out in their squad cars, and I have felt like, again, well-trained and well-equipped in the squad car. But because it's such a stressful job, I do think having a place where they feel supported and camaraderie with each other, as they experience things that we don't know anything about, quite frankly. And so they have, I just think that having that kind of a supportive environment is important. And as you mentioned, it's been discussed for some time. We were hoping to do it in the next few years. So these are just kind of general comments, not about the amount of money and so on. I do think it is more, definitely, I always like to see a building that's about to stand empty to be used for something else. It's kind of the ultimate in recycling, of not having something stand empty. And so I thought excellent work on the staff and everyone to identify, and the mayor to lead on it, to identify and move forward on it. And it is something that we need. And I think it's a way of our ensuring one of our most important duties, which is to provide for public safety, that we keep our police department in top form. So those are my comments. I'm in support of it.
Anybody else? All right, we have a motion second in front of us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Initial resolution number 6-24 of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $3,785,000 for the city's improvement costs of a portion of a building to be used for housing of machinery and equipment.
Move to approve resolution number 6-24.
Second that?
We have a motion and a second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Initial resolution number 7-24 of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, relating to the issuance of general obligation promissory notes in an amount not to exceed $5,745,000 for a portion of the city's acquisition costs of a building located at 2101 O'Neill Road within the city to be used for housing of machinery and equipment, and for the city's acquisition costs for a building for police facilities.
Move to approve resolution 7-24.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Discussion?
Well, I'll opine again. You've all heard me talk about the need for the Public Works facility before, but again, it's something that's long overdue. People have known for many years that the current facility is kind of like a shed with equipment stacked in there and not much room, not many amenities at all for the staff. And we certainly value our public works staff as well. They are unseen many times what they're doing. They're up actually at 2 a.m., sometimes plowing. I guess we've got a storm coming in, so they'll be on duty. They also, the work that they have done has moved into a different era as well in terms of keeping track of things electronically, computer entries. We've got more focus on our stormwater management and so on, and there's just many ways. I think our Public Works Director was sharing with me once that like he recently had to apply for storm relief from some of our big windstorms, and we had to record, how much fuel was used in various devices that went to the storm. It was all very detailed, recorded. So there's a lot more technology involved. And again, just the amenities of a workspace, a place where you can have lunch, sit down, locker rooms, things like that are lacking, and they've been lacking for some time. So this has obviously been on the top of our list as well. And once again, it's great to find a building that's usable, can be converted. And so we all know that we've discussed this in private, but it's good to talk about it in public, that we are able to execute both of these projects for less money than we would have spent if we had built from scratch, built something new. So again, I think it's a project that has, it's overdue, long overdue, and I'm really happy to see it moving forward. So I definitely support it.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Initial resolution number 8-24 of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, relating to the issuance of taxable note anticipation notes in an amount not to exceed $3,495,000 for approximately 55% of the city's acquisition costs of a building located at 2101 O'Neill Road within the city to be used for housing of machinery and equipment.
Move to approve resolution 8-24.
Second.
A motion is second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, obviously for a special meeting, taking time to be able to come in here to get this very important work done. I also want to acknowledge, and I didn't want the evening to go by without acknowledging the fact that we do have the holiday coming up, Martin Luther King Day. I think it's a great day to honor the great late Dr. Martin Luther King, reflect upon his work and personal reflection for that day. So I hope everybody has an opportunity to once again reflect and to learn more about the work that Dr. Martin Luther King has done and still is ongoing work. So I don't have anything else. Anybody?
I just have a question. Do you anticipate another special meeting at all, or will we likely be able to? We don't know. Okay.
Yeah,
Just
I
asking.
don't mean to laugh, it's just because this is kind of
We don't
ever
know.
evolving.
Okay.
We do not.
Sure.
So, as soon as we know something, we'll be sure to reach out and.
But there's a 30-day window. That's partly what Mr. Lentz was saying
Right.
about
Yeah.
our vote tonight, and we
Yeah.
can't move before on another vote until then.
Right, for the bonding,
Yeah,
correct.
for the bonding, the
Yes.
20th.
Yes.
30-day period before we can do that.
Right, before we can do that, so, okay. So, and if something came up in one of the buildings that we needed to discuss, you might
Immediate.
call us in again.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Anybody else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
A motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.